back up a little bit because there's a really good story on how you got from policy to journalism.
How I
And
got to that
so,
internship to start with.
yeah, so I just love the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang origin story. So, can you
Okay.
share that with our audience?
Yes. So the reason I had two internships that summer, other than being an overachiever, was because I had this internship at HHS and I was going in to meet with my new bosses in April of 2014, if you're curious. And I was really early because, again, overachiever. And so I was killing time talking to my dad, your brother, on the phone on the lawn of the Capitol building. And I had just finished a summer interning, or 2 summers ago, I had interned at the Capitol building. So I knew the Capitol really well. I gave tours. That was a big part of my job.
Oh, cool.
And so I like knew that's kind of partially why I was hanging out there to kill time, because I knew like which benches were good, you know? And kind of out of nowhere saw this contraption that ended up being called a gyrocopter, but it basically was like a lawn chair strapped to a propeller. And this guy
So
landed
crazy.
this flying contraption on the lawn of the Capitol building. And I'm there alone. I'm looking around and no one's there.
Anyone see
This
that?
guy,
Did anyone see that?
yeah, like truly like what? Because and the thing was flying. Like he came out of the sky. Like clearly he'd been, it was air, like it was seaworthy, you know? Um, and like a couple more seconds passed and then I turned again and I was like, Dad, this weird thing just happened. So I'm still on the phone. And I turn and see on the roof of the Capitol building all of these snipers pop up. Like they had been there, but they just, were hidden. And all of a sudden, these like massive like groups of armed police that I think now probably were Capitol Police, but at the time they just were like men with guns, come running toward me. And at this point, I'm between the men and the guns and the gyrocopter man. And my dad on the phone, who's like pretty even keeled and realistic, I kind of explained what was happening. I was like, wow, they're really big guns. Because at the time I also like didn't really know that much about guns. And my dad was like, run, just run, like get out of there, like hang up and run. Like I don't like the sound of this. Like,
Yeah.
which fair. It turned out to not really be a threat. The guy was an irate Florida mailman delivering 535 letters about campaign finance reform, trying to do like a stunt to get media attention to like for his issue. He was
Campaign
literally a
finance
U.S.
reform.
mailman. Yeah,
That's a good
and
issue.
that was his pet issue. Yeah, and so he flew his gyrocopter. He was from Florida, but he flew it from Pennsylvania. I'm pretty sure. And I was one of the only people that saw it happen. It turned out that the Iraqi prime minister was giving a speech in the Capitol building right behind me for a joint session of Congress. It was a huge deal, huge amount of extra security. The Florida mailman didn't realize this, picked a bad day. And so that's part of why it was like so intense afterward. So the whole Capitol was on lockdown. It was like this whole big issue at the Capitol, which is funny now that I'm writing another book about an attack on the Capitol. But
Yeah.
this guy was arrested. Everything was fine. The whole thing was done within 40 minutes. But back in the day, this was the kind of thing that would rate top of the news. And
Imagine.
Anderson Cooper at CNN invited me to be on his show. And so I had met like a CNN reporter on the street, and one thing led to another. And in the
But it was more than
interview,
it was more than a CNN reporter, wasn't it? Wasn't it like, if memory
all these-
serves, there was all these,
yeah.
and you basically like freelanced a press conference of like,
Yeah.
okay, you answer,
It's
you
always
answer.
funny. I normally tell this story to people who don't know it, but you're like, yeah, you lived it with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I like ran around, and then the men with cops or men with guns, the police officers arrested the guy. FBI descend on the place. They lock down the whole campus, and I'm there. And so I give a statement to the police, give my statement to the FBI, start explain what I saw and everything. And they're setting up for a press conference with one of the police officers who's going to give a press conference about what just happened. And so all these reporters come out and kind of like form a semicircle around this podium. And I'm still waiting for this meeting to happen. And I've always been interested, nosy Nora, in like what's going on. And so I just kind of like sidle up into the semicircle. And it was delayed and delayed and delayed. And finally they said, okay, it's not happening. We don't have enough information. We're not going to release information yet. This is an ongoing incident. We're not going to have a press conference. And I had been chatting with a woman next to me who, this is actually an insane part of the story that I don't know if you know, but who ended up going to the same high school as me, which is a small Catholic girls' school in New Jersey. We figured that out after the fact. But I was like, well, I saw what happened. Like, I can tell you what happened if you want. And so
she was a journalist?
She worked for CNN. Yeah, she was a CNN reporter.
Oh, gotcha. No, I didn't know that.
She just happened to be standing next to me. And she and the cameraman like turned to face me, and I started describing what was happening, but everyone else around us was there, and the press conference had just been canceled. And now, having been on the journalist side, I'm like, oh, that's a gold mine of, just some young person describing what happened is better than a police officer giving a press conference.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
And so then I kind of inadvertently gave a whole press conference, was on every network. This is at like 4 or 5 o'clock. I went and did my interview meeting, and then had a phone call on my phone when I got out from a producer who I ended up working with for years and who I'm still in touch with, but from a stranger saying, hey, we saw you on TV earlier. Do you want to come and do like an actual full interview with Anderson Cooper? And so I did, and it went really well. And I made
Wait. I need to back up because there's an interesting part of this story too, is that when you got, this is my recollection again, when you got picked up to go to do this interview, and you're a newbie, right? Like, you're not a seasoned journalist at this point. But wasn't it, you weren't able to get to the studio on time, and so then you had to be on the side of the road, and you had to handle all the crazy that was
You're
around you.
You're remembering more details about this than I do.
I just find this fascinating.
I mean, yeah. So I was at my aunt on the other side's house in Maryland. I was like spending the night there, and they like sent a black car for me, which I was like, this is so crazy. And like my little cousins were in the window of the house in suburban Maryland, like looking at this black car picking me up. And I remember they had like, the little the mini little water bottles. And I was like, oh, this is so fancy. I was 20. Like I was shocked. And my mom had just bought me my first like grown up work dress for this internship meeting.
Cool.
So I had this J. Crew dress. We just got rid of it because it like really doesn't fit anymore. But I kept it for so long just because this was the dress I was wearing.
Sentimental.
This moment.
Yeah.
So I wore this like nice dress, and again, now understanding it from the journalism and like the journalist control room producer perspective, they must have been freaking out because I was supposed to lead the show, and we hit crazy traffic. We were driving in from suburban Maryland at that point. I should have just stayed in the city, but I didn't know. And was super late. I couldn't get to hair and makeup. And they called and they were like, we're so sorry, you're not able to have hair and makeup. Like, do you have anything with you? And I was like, oh yeah, I have makeup. Like, I'll just do it in the car. Like,
use my lip gloss,
I'm not worried about it. Yeah, like, and again, like if I was an adult, maybe I would have been like, no. And then I wasn't going to be able to make it to the bureau and do the whole like handhold kind of thing that later was my job to do with like people who were nervous with their interviews. And instead they said, we have a reporter on the street outside the Capitol building, Tom Foreman, who again, I ended up working with for years, but at this point was like a random man. He said, what if instead you pull over on the side of the road, go look for this man and his cameraman, and then we'll like set you up for the interview. And again,
on the
I'm
side of the road.
Yeah, on the side of the road. I mean, with the Capitol building in the background, but like downtown DC, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a random road. It was like right near the National Mall, but it's far away enough because just like the way the perspective is, you want the Capitol to be small and in the background. So you're like a neighborhood away, basically, from the Capitol building.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that part of DC is silent at night. I mean, it's 9 o'clock at night at this point, prime time.
Okay.
There's nobody around. It's completely deserted. And except for some of the police tape from like earlier in the day, still up. And yeah, I mean, again, now I spent my whole career doing this, but I show up and there's a young girl whose job I ended up having, and then a suited older man with a face of makeup on doing his report, and khaki cargo short wearing photographer. The favorite pants of photographers everywhere, and started describing what I saw. And I felt like this was all very serious, but I think by this point we knew it was kind of nothing. And so Tom Foreman, who went on before me, made some kind of joke to Anderson. And I was like, oh, okay, so like I'm allowed to make jokes. Now that we know like no one was hurt, nothing bad happened, like it was just kind of a silly thing. And a slow news day, clearly. And so I said something in the interview, he was like, can you describe what the gyrocopter looked like? And so I described it, and like out of like truly just like it came to me as I was saying out loud. I said, yeah, well, it looked like something out of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Just like the way it was like a little like lawn chair with like a propeller on top. Like, and he cracked up and like thought that was hilarious. And he said on TV, and he's told me since, like, he just was like, wait, I thought you were like a literal child, but you're referencing this movie. And I said something like, oh, my parents raised me right. Like, my dad was like, made sure I, saw Chitty Chitty Bang Bang as a kid. I was terrified of that movie, though. That's a scary movie for a kid,
It is.
to be honest.
I know, my kids felt the same.
It's a little creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then the interview clip went viral again. It was a slow news day. So people on the internet started calling me Gyrocopter Girl. And then in my ear, I was like wearing an earpiece, which again, I had never worn an earpiece in my life, but in an earpiece, like with the Secret Service thing, like down to the back, this other man's voice pops into my ear after the interview's done and just says, how old are you? And I was like, are you talking to me? Like, who is this? What's happening? It turns out it was the executive producer of the show, who, again, is like one of the most incredible men in my life, the mentor and someone who I will look up to for the rest of my entire life. But at the time, random man, how old are you? Which we all have laughed about a million times since then, because I was like, 20? And he said, are you a college student? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, that was really great. I think you have a future in TV broadcasting if you want it. Would you like to come intern for Anderson Cooper this summer in New York?
Oh my gosh.
Damn.
And me being me said, well, I actually already have an internship that I've committed to. But I could do the second half of the summer. I could probably split my time. And so that's how I ended up having my HHS internship at the beginning, the first half of the summer. So like I also had gone into HHS knowing I was going to do the CNN internship and kind of like, that could be something different and weird, but like I kind of thought it would be interesting to like learn how the other side, how the press like functioned, and then I'd go into politics still.
Yeah. So, and then there's another piece of the story that I remember because weird details stick to me. Like, don't ask me what I'm doing for even for the holidays. I don't know, but I know, but I just it's a great origin story. But when you were kind of waiting for the interview and you're like doing banter with the producers, like at this point you were basically an expert on the Affordable Care Act, right? And so weren't you guys like talking policy? And then when they found that you were like knowledgeable, personable, beautiful also, I'll just add. So, yeah. But anyway, but like, you're all that in a bag of chips. But like, the point
this is my aunt. This is the nepotism part of the interview.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'd say that to other guests. They're all that in a bag of chips. But but like talking affordable care, right? Like it showed that you knew your stuff, right? Like you weren't just a pretty face or cracking jokes on TV. It was like you had it all.
Well, and there was such limited information about what had actually happened at that point. And so the reporter who wasn't there, didn't see it, hadn't talked to anybody directly who had been there and seen it, was doing the best he could. He did a nice report. But I could give like an actual information and context, and I had given tours of the Capitol building, and so I watch it back now, and I'm like imitating. So I'm doing like a TV reporter imitation. That's like a little embarrassing now to watch back. But I was like, well, on the east steps of the Capitol building, blah blah, blah. And then Anderson. Part of it also was that I was like answering so like I knew exactly what I was talking about, so much so that Anderson got confused, and in the control room they got confused. And again, like I learned this afterward, but they got confused and thought maybe I was a reporter, and like where they were confused like if I was an eyewitness or if I was a reporter. And so then Anderson at one point thought started asking me questions that I had not been prepped for and that he wasn't supposed to ask me. He asked at one point.
I see.
Because I had mentioned security and how, like, heightened security. And he was like, I don't understand. And I think he was genuinely asking. He said, I don't understand. Why was there heightened security? Did they know this guy was coming? And I said, oh, sorry, no. So there was heightened security for the day because the Iraqi prime minister was giving a joint address to Congress at the time. And so you did see extra SUVs and blah, blah. I was like, I got all into my, like, tour guide voice, kind of. And so to fast forward a little bit, when I walked into CNN the first day, all of the staff members recognized me and were like, is that the Gyrocopter girl? Like, is that from like 6 months ago? Like, what is she doing here? And then it turned out I was there to like do my internship. But
the chitty chitty bang bang girl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's such a great story, and it to me it kind of shows like you were in the right place at the right time, but the way that you handled it is like there's this opportunity, there's something happening, and you're the person that runs toward it, right? And like kind of taking the opportunity and just kind of seeing where it goes, right? So you got in the fancy car, you were able, and I think the fact that you were a policy expert on the ACA it's just such a cool part of this whole story, because you go into, even people that go into broadcasting, like, which I myself went into with a production background, but I'm gonna double major in history, so I have something behind it, right? So I want to be like competent, not just on the production side, but on the content side.
Yeah.
And I feel like you started content and you're like, oh, journalism. Oh, okay.
My fun fact that has not felt very fun at certain points in my career is I've never in my life taken a journalism class or a course. Not in middle school, not in high school, not in college. And I had to learn all of it on the fly. And as much as I'm making nepotism jokes here, it felt like that kind of showing up at CNN, being the Gyrocopter girl who had the viral video, who showed up halfway through the summer because she had another internship. Like, and I also didn't help myself. Like, I showed up in like jewel-toned modest dresses every day, like looking on air ready just in case someone was going to throw me, like, like I definitely was like really aggressive as a 21-year-old. At that point, I had turned 21 by the summer.
I
hadn't even. I was still 20. I was still 20 that summer. Yeah. So I dressed the part, but like I took that to heart, and I was. I had some incredible mentors. Some of my peers were not the biggest fan of me showing up, which I like now as an adult understand why. But I felt very like I didn't want to be the Gyrocopter girl. I just wanted to like earn my place,
Yeah.
It took years for people to stop calling me that and like seeing me that way,
Oh, good luck after this podcast comes out.
Yeah. But it's funny, like when you ask that question, that's not the first story I tell anymore. Like when you ask like, how did you become a journalist? I told the other true version of the story, which is like my internships, which is like what solidified the moment for me. But I don't go to Gyrocopter story immediately because now I can see it the way that you've described it, of like, oh, it was all the building blocks of who I am that have like made my career a success now. But at the time it felt very like imposter syndrome,
Yeah. I can understand that, right? But at the same time, I don't know. It's important to take advantage of opportunities when they come your way, and also like holding the ladder down. Is that the right expression? But like, you're not
helping the next person up.
Helping the next person up. So that's what's important, that you fight through these imposter syndromes because they saw something in you, even if you didn't go the normal path.
Yeah.